Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Soup Teas video. And in this one, we are going to be reviewing the new Totemic Shaman moving into the War Within for Restoration and Enhancement Shaman. And this is the first set of hero talent trees that I really think is actually going to become a bit problematic. I mentioned it in my last video that some of the class rework changes that just happened and we're going to continue to cover, so make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on them, is now becoming a bit of an issue because you can see a massive delineation in terms of what is desirable as far as power for classes between different content. Now, I did a bunch of research from Mythic Plus players around these talent trees for Restoration specifically, and Totemic has overall been widely positive. Some of the benefits of this are that you're going to put a new totem down on the ground called Surging Totem, and this is just going to place Healing Rain under allies automatically, and you can see the potency of that, right? You don't have to cast it, reapply it every time you pull some trash mobs. You can benefit from Acid Rain, get some instant cast damage, and then immediately focus on doing something else, whether it be, casting Riptides, Heals, Lava Bursts, or Chain Lightnings to try and add more damage. This is going to make it really fluid in Mythic Plus situations to just immediately ramp, and I think so much so that why would you ever run Farseer when Farseer focuses around abilities like Unleash Life? Now, Unleash Life is a core component of Resto Shaman gameplay. It's just an instant cast heal that amplifies the next heal that you're going to cast. And I think it's super interesting gameplay, but it just doesn't add enough value to compete with the potency that something like Surging Totem is going to do in Mythic Plus, so much so that I see PvEers say they don't even want to have to talent for Unleash Life, even though it's really interesting and flavorful gameplay, because it doesn't give them enough value. And we're seeing that as kind of a big problem at the moment for a lot of classes. They just pruned Soul Swap from Affliction Warlocks because, again, I think it was just not seeing a lot of value in Mythic Plus in terms of overall potency. But for somebody solo questing in the world, be able to soul swap from one mob to the next, or in PvP, be able to soul swap a row of dots onto a target far away, was really fun and interesting gameplay that was almost required in those avenues, and they've decided to just completely remove those abilities instead of just putting them maybe at the top of the tree as an optional sideline for anybody interested in using them in those different types of content. So I think we're in this very scary position where I'm almost wondering if they're going to prune Unleash Life, because Totemic was entirely based around some of the requests to try and make Healing Rain instant and make it easier to do between pull to pull, which I think is good. I think listening to Mythic Plus players, what's going to make their classes operate in Mythic Plus is a really good idea. But removing core abilities like we've seen with Soul Swap for Warlock, or now even possibly potentially Unleash Life, I don't think is a good idea to remove them moving forward. But you can see that there's a clear delineation between these two talent trees. This talent tree focuses on extra charges of Riptide, Unleash Life healing, more charges of Earth Shield, Nature Swiftness being baseline as opposed to having to take it in the talent trees. This is all really good for single target. It's all really good for PvP. So Farseer is looking really strong in that regard, but all the Mythic Plus people think that it's very weak and that it's bad and they don't want to take Unleash Life. Whereas Totemic, I think that this is probably going to be very bad and weak in PvP. Mostly, again, because when you put the totem on the ground, it's really flashy. It's got 3 little orbs and motes going around it, and it only has 160k HP. So, Rep Paladin's going to look at that totem, tab target, cast a Templar's Vert. My Lava Burst is half of its HP. Me just sitting here with no Flame Shock. That totem's gonzo in PvP. This totem is gonzo. Also, PvP is very dynamic. Now, while it does cast Healing Rain every 5 seconds, it's seemingly random. Like right here, it casted it on the Stormwind Guard, and it's kind of just like throwing it around willy-nilly. Like it's on the Stormwind Guard again. I don't really even know how it's coded to decide who it targets. I think this could be a problem in Mythic Plus as well. Like if it's putting it in the caster group instead of on the tank, where you obviously want it for Acid Rain to do damage to the mobs. I don't know if it can prioritize melee DPS over ranged if there's melee or if there's more melee, but then sometimes you might want it in the ranged group. So the fact that it auto targets is both a blessing and a curse, and I think it'll probably be even more problematic in battleground situations, right? Because you're thinking that this is probably going to be best suited for battlegrounds. You get a little bit of extra AoE damage, you get a lot of extra AoE healing, but again, this totem is just going to get immediately sniped. So they could make it immune to damage. They could make the Surging Totem immune to damage. That is one way to get around it. They also haven't not yet implemented the extra health, but it's only 30%. So like it's going to have maybe 200k HP. Again, that's still like maybe one big spell is going to be able to snipe that thing and kill it really fast. But it does seem really interesting for Mythic Plus, and you're going to be dropping totems that are going to cast chain heals that hasn't been put into the game, and your chain heals are also going to bounce off of the totems. Now, another problem with this is that it's really mana intensive. If you're just sitting here and you're dropping healing streams and you're spamming chain heals, this makes a lot of sense in Mythic Plus scenario, right? In a PvE scenario, this is making me think of, I'm going back to my TBC Resto Shaman. Feels really fun in those environments. But if you're in PvP and you're doing this, look how fast my mana bar is just getting drained. I'm going to be out of mana so fast as this build using chain heal a lot. So I'm a bit worried about the mana efficiency of this build overall, especially when it comes to PvP, for it being able to work or for it being viable. But the biggest fear that I have is, what abilities are they going to delete to try and make classes as streamlined for Mythic Plus, which seems unnecessary. Like, just don't delete them. Just put them off to the side at the top of the talent tree if they're a cool and interesting flavor for the class that isn't necessarily the most optimized for just doing massive amounts of AoE damage as immediately as possible, you know? I don't think they should be pruning interesting mechanics for other portions of the game entirely just because they don't fit into the optimization of min-maxing AoE damage in Mythic Plus. I really don't. So that was my first biggest concern with this. I think that it is really good flavor. I've seen a lot of positive receptions from it for PvE. But again, in PvP, main problems are going to be mana and the totem getting sniped. So, and the fact that it's competing with Farseer, which gives you, core main PvP mechanics that are just really strong in general. Like, it's just going to proc more Riptides. You get more Riptide charges. You get some Lava Burst damage to throw in. Like, this for PvP is really hard to compete with. And it's funny because it's vice versa. Totemic is really hard to compete with as Farseer for Mythic Plus. So these talent trees are pretty much like divided down the middle, where I think most players who do Mythic Plus are always going to be Totemic and even Raiding. And then all Shamans who do PvP are probably all going to be Farseer. And I don't know how you're planning on balancing this, or maybe you should just leave it like that. This is all the really fun and strong mechanics for PvP. This is really all the fun and strong mechanics for Mythic Plus. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. But this is what one of the biggest concerns I have right now with the class development moving forward. But we also have Enhancement, and how it works with Enhancement is going to be quite a bit different than how it works with Resto. So we should make sure that we take a look at this. But it's going to have a similar issue, I think, with the fact that we're not going to be able to... Ooh, I'm equipping an intellect weapon. We're not going to be able to utilize the totem because it's just going to get killed. Making it, which unfortunately I'm not like super stoked about either of these talent trees for Enhancement. A lightning focus build, and this one I'm not super sold on the enhanced ones just yet, but Stormstrike has a chance to unleash a surging bolt at your totem, and then I think the totem just redirects that damage. So it's very similar to the Windwalker Tiger statue, where you put it on the ground, it just pulses AoE. It's like a magma totem that you interact with, and it does extra AoE. So obviously I think in Mythic Plus scenarios, like, that's going to be really crazy, right? So you can get more damage while it's active. It has pretty much 100% uptime, unless it gets killed. Or you can, when you're during Ascendance, you get an Ascendance proc or something, you can get some crazy damage out with that. This does focus more around Lava Lash. I like that they're incorporating Searing Totems. I think that was like a flavor of Shaman that's kind of been lost, as Searing Totems. So Lava Lash, summoning a Searing Totem when you cast fire, I think that's a cool mechanic. We get the size and health increase. We can get cooldown reduction to some of our totems. I think Cap Totems specifically, and things like Mythic Plus or Poison Cleansing Totem, definitely are going to be really valuable. But in PvP, I'm not sure how valuable the cooldown reduction will be. I think, again, this is a PvP pick because you need more health for your totems. You want them to heal further, versus the cooldown reduction of these totems is more valuable in Mythic Plus trash. You are going to get shields when you have totems down. So if you have totems down, they grant you a shield. So this is like Soul Leech from Warlocks. It's going to give you extra personal durability, which again is not something Enhance really needed. I think Enhance, either for PvE, needed like a unique raid buff to have a reason to bring an Enhance, bring back maybe the old school Wind Fury totem. But yeah, more tankiness. I don't think so. It needed mobility, or it needed like some sort of powerful raid cooldown for PvE and more mobility for PvP, so it's unfortunate. Frost Shocks empowered by Hailstorm and Fire Nova cause your Searing Totems to shoot volleys of Fireball. So they're basically turning this into the Doom Guard that gets summoned from Demonology Warlocks, so it's going to shoot up massive AoE damage. Increase the chance for Wind Fury Weapon to trigger, and increases its damage by 15%. This may actually make it worth putting Wind Fury Weapon on your weapon, and I think in PvP, at least for a while, you've been putting double Flame Tongue, at least, on Dragonflight. So increase the damage in healing of your Surging Totem by 25%, which again, if you run the Ascendance, that's a lot of scaling. Or you can just run the increased crit chance of Flame Tongue weapon by 15, and it's crit damage. Oh my god, I feel like that's insane for Lava Lash. How are you going to compete with that? I mean, this is, again, more single target versus AoE, and again, Mythic Plus, you're probably going to choose the AoE. Totemic Coordination increases the critical strike chance of sharing totems attacks by 15% and critical strike damage by 30%. Or casting Sundering within 40 yards causes it to create a tremor. I want to see what that looks like. And then we get the same benefits, the 3 motes. So for Enhanced, it's going to be Storm Strike, Wind Strike, deal 25% increased damage and damage a nearby enemy. Casting Sundering or an Elemental Blast refunds 12 seconds from its cooldown and increase the chance of your next Fire Nova, Lava Lash, crit chance of your next Fire Nova, Lava Lash, and its crit damage. So there's huge crit damage modifiers on this, which could make this more competitive in PvP, especially because it focuses down on Lava Lash more, which is typically what we run for. So now I didn't save a talent tree build for Lava Lash, so we're gonna have to remake this here really quickly. But what do you guys think about the talent tree so far? What are your main concerns? Do you think that my opinion here being voiced about the talent tree breakdowns is valid? Do you think that they should just continue to optimize for Mythic Plus solely with no consideration and just completely delete abilities if they don't align with the most optimized AoE damage in Mythic Plus? Because this is something obviously that I think is going to be a big deal as far as moving forward. So we've got Sundering. We don't have Ellie Blast, do we? Unless it's baseline. Where's my Ellie Blast? Am I cooked here? I think I'm cooked. I just want to see what the Sundering animation looks like, but it may also not be enabled. So we're going to be a little bit sad if that is the case. But we will see here just in a moment. Okay, so we got the Lava Lash, we got the Flame Strike, we'll apply all the changes. We got the Sundering on our bar. I want to see what the Totemic Surge looks like as well from the ground. Although it's not letting me drag it from the spell book or from the talent tree, so it's a little bit unfortunate. We've got, where is it? Is it not putting it in my spell book? Am I losing my mind here? Surging. I don't think they put it in my spellbook, bro. I can't even. Oh, it replaces Wind Fury Totem, so you have to run Wind Fury Totem also, which is something that you don't do in PvP. Okay, so this is likely gonna have some problem. Oh, there's Ellie Blast. Okay, we got Ellie Blast. We figured it out, team. We figured it out, squad. The missing ingredients, the missing sauce. So again, this is something again where like you're taking something you don't really want in what part of the game, because you have to, and I think it's going to cause some friction, right, between players and the content that they want to be able to do. So let's just put this bad boy down, see what it looks like. We get a little thing summoned in here. We'll call it a Sundering, see what the Quake looks like. Looks like it's probably not implemented, but we got Ellie Blast as well, which get the lower cooldown. So let's just lob one of these out, see what that looks like. So it looks like it's just going to sit here forever. It's just going to continue to passively AoE. It's going to buff our Lava Lashes, though. So I'm imagining that this is likely going to be strong, you know. I think this will be stronger than the other build in PvP, depending on the tuning. At least if we were playing in the current patch, right? Just because it focuses on the Lava Lash build, it focuses on Ellie Blast, which are just tuned to be more powerful. And it's basically just, it kind of just feels like the other build from Dragonflight. Instead of a Wind Fury Totem, it's a Surging Totem, so you've got to like constantly reposition it, because if people move away from it, you're going to obviously lose the pulsing AoE damage benefit from it that you would otherwise be able to get. I feel like Enhance is getting a little bit of the short end of the stick. I mean, maybe in Mythic Plus, this is going to be absolutely crazy, just putting this totem on. I should probably have Wind Fury Weapon on my weapon, because it's going to be giving me all those extra procs, right? We can see those fast Wind Fury procs, the enhancements coming through from the talent tree itself. I feel like, there, we got an Ascendance procs, and our Surging Totem's going to be even doing more damage, and our Ellie Blast effects. Yeah, it's basically feels similar to the Dragonflight, except instead of Wind Fury on the ground, we just get the Surging Totem on the ground that we got to constantly make sure that is repositioned onto the enemy player. Like, I'm just imagining in PvP, fight moves away from the totem, you have to wait 20 seconds before it comes off cooldown. Fight moves away from the totem, we got to wait 20 seconds before the cooldown comes up. And I mean, you do get other benefits from it, right? With like the Lava Lash, the Ellie Blast effects, the Sundering effects, and things like that. So maybe it's not a total loss. You just won't focus on the actual Surging Totem itself when it comes to something like a battleground or an arena match in that sense. But it's not as awesome as I was expecting, I'll be honest. I was hoping for something a little more, especially considering they were basing this off of the like Thrall for the Farseer coming from Warcraft 3, and like we had got like Kael'thas effects for Mage with all the orbs. I feel like this one is not as poggers for me, whether you're doing Mythic Plus or you're doing PvP. I kind of wish it was just a little bit different for the Totemic one, at least specifically. So I'm giving this one a lower ranking. I'm probably going to do a tier list. If you want to make sure you see that tier list of all the different hero talents coming through, make sure to hit the subscribe button. But that's my review right now, showing you guys the Totemic, showing you guys some of the problems that could potentially start unearthing themselves in the War Within. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.